Hi everyone, I'm back with Kat Trolinos with Tada by Kat, Next Level Staging and Design. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. Why don't you first tell us a little bit about yourself personally before we get into what you're doing?
What I do. Okay, sure. So I am a mother of 3 beautiful adult children and a glamma of 4 gorgeous grandchildren. And of course, a wife to my spouse of almost 23 years. He's also my business partner.
Awesome.
And that's me on a personal level. I am the president, CEO, and visionary of Tada by Kat, Next Level Staging and Design. And what would you like to know about what we do?
Tell me about the services you offer.
Awesome. So, as the name suggests, we do staging and design. Staging to sell, or staging to dwell, as we call it. We're finding today with our home spaces being more sacred than ever that a lot of folks are reaching out and wanting to refresh their current space, either with their existing stuff or enhancing it with some new things, and or being challenged with having to use flex space and create a home office space, maybe multiple. I have a client I just spoke to this morning, and they need to carve out 2 spaces because they both work from home. So that coupled with, we just started a new division, Cat's Eye and Decor, where we are creating custom biophilic wall art and textile wall art. So I'm super excited about that.
What is that all about? That sounds really interesting.
So if you go on my website, www.tadabycat.com, you can see some samples of, it's basically preserved moss, dried, and various colors. I source it from all over the world, and then we customize. We just did a restaurant where we did big circles about this big over each booth. We're getting ready to do another one in a medical office where it'll be little skinny panels. So we can pretty much make any shape, size, or color that our clients want, and it kind of ties in, with our design clients. We of course use it on staging projects as well.
Awesome. Yeah. I think people, I had someone on last week that was outdoor living, and it's like, just like the office space in your home now, I think it's becoming more and more important to make that space something you enjoy to sit in. It's not this like afterthought, cluttery office, which everyone that didn't work from home before and now works from home, it was just kind of that space that you used when you pull out your computer and you would just kind of sit there and do something really quick on it, and then papers would pile up. That's kind of the dump off room. It's whatever, and then just stacks and stacks of papers. That's, I guess I'm saying that a little bit about myself. That was, how my office was, and we kind of really had to rethink that and make it kind of more of a workspace that we enjoy sitting in.
Exactly, because like you mentioned too, it has to be functional, but you don't want to sacrifice, because of that functionality, sacrifice it being a pleasant, joyful space that you're going to feel good about walking into every morning or every afternoon or what have you. So that's real important. I myself went through kind of a metamorphosis one day. I'm working on my 10-foot breakfast table that overlooks the fountain, but nevertheless it's the breakfast table. And I turned around and looked at my 3-sided fireplace that was big, bulky stone, and I thought, oh my gosh, that needs to be updated. I'm beautifying spaces all day long, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're starting with the fireplace. And from there, of course, it took off, and I've been working from home for quite a few years, but it's been nice to refresh our space and update our space, which was
I think we forget about ourselves sometimes,
we do, right?
Because I'm with clients every day and I'm telling them, the new color that's out is this, agreeable gray is like everywhere now, just paint your house, do this, move your furniture, make the space look wider, all that kind of stuff, and then you don't do it when you go home. Your house is just kind of like, okay, this is the space where you just get home and just forget about all that stuff. And it's like we need to pay attention on our own spaces.
There's an old saying, the Culver's kids need new shoes, and that's kind of what happens. Yeah, we forget about ourselves. And we started, right before COVID. We started like in October before COVID hit, then the holidays hit, so they had to stop. Then COVID hit, so it was a long process.
Yeah, and getting launched and going and
exactly.
everything.
But I think like many people that I've heard, with the whole lockdown, part of the lockdown, which we're over that, thank God, right now, but they found time to organize and clean out drawers and purge, and we certainly did. After 20-some years in a space, you collect a lot of stuff that you forget about. So I think we had at one time something like 27 big black bags for heavy pickup for the trash. Yeah, that's mostly from my garage. I'm like, okay, do I need pads from 3 careers ago, or pens, or stuff from 3 careers ago? Probably not. So, but yeah, you collect stuff, before you know it.
So what type of training and certifications have you gotten to start this business and
Sure.
see it flourishing right now?
Good question. So I worked for a builder for about 7 or 8 years, and when the market downturned, real estate market, in, was it 08-ish, something like that, the company decided to close model homes, and I was handpicked with 2 other people to be a closeout specialist. So without model homes, we were charged with getting rid of these properties. Well, the challenge was we might be right next to a model home. So it was very difficult. There was no emotion or sizzle. We're just trying to sell, get rid of these homes. So I convinced my manager, I said, look, I need some certification. We need to stage them. So I researched, found out, Barb Schwartz, the creator of home staging, was the mother of staging, and trained with her personally in San Diego, California, and proceeded to, back then, what we call really vignette staging. But the bottom line is we sold in record time once we did stage the properties. So that's kind of how I launched. And when I left the builder, I actually was renewing my real estate license, and I thought, well, this staging will be a value add. And then fast forward, the staging took on a life of its own. Now I keep my real estate license, but that's just to stay connected to realtors like yourself. And if a family member or a friend wants me to help them sell their house, I certainly, do help them do that. So yeah, that's how the business grew. Training, I started off with my ASP, Accredited Staging Professional Certification. Then I went on 2 years later to get my master's certification in Denver. And from there, I've taken many classes, from investor certification, luxury certification, vacant certification. As you can tell, I'm real big on education. Yeah. And I think, it's to bring your clients the best that you can. To service them the best, you need to be knowledgeable, stay on top of the latest, know what works, know what doesn't work, know statistics, so that you can help. Because I look at staging to be the most strategic marketing tool that you can use as a realtor to sell a home for top dollar in the least amount of time as possible.
Absolutely. I think it's super important, and it's sometimes hard to convince the clients to spend the money on it, but when you can actually show the statistics of how quickly the homes that are staged sell, that
Absolutely.
It really, changes their minds a little bit.
It does. It saddens me. You and I were just talking before the show when I see someone just drop, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the price, and I'm like, oh, if you would have just staged it for a fraction of that,
5 or 10 grand, you would have made the 40 grand.
Exactly. And so, that's like right now in today's market, it couldn't be more important to squeeze out every bit of equity out of your home, because we're seeing the market kind of settle a teens bit, but it's still on the edge of a seller's market. So you really need to maximize those dollars, and staging creates emotion. Proper staging creates emotion, and guess what? Buyers justify price, the best price, with emotion.
So what do you think sets you apart from other stagers, and what's the difference between you and some of the other stagers out there?
Well, no one has my hair, or no. we're all different. As you know, Dena, no two realtors are created equal.
Absolutely.
Correct? And, in any industry, there's realtors and there's realtors. There's staging companies and there's staging companies. And you need to make sure you're a good fit. I had what's called a discovery call this morning, a Zoom discovery call with a potential design client. I'm sure she was blown away because nobody else does that. But I'm a firm believer that, particularly in design, you need to be a good fit and see if you resonate with each other, if you're on the same page, and if you're going to be able to help them the way they want to be helped. That's from the design perspective. So that kind of sets me apart. I really believe you cannot over-communicate from the design perspective. It's a team effort so that I can facilitate and help your vision and dream of how you want to live in the space come to fruition and execute it. And that's the difference between, striving for excellence, not perfection, but striving for excellence, or mediocre. On the staging side, one of the major things I think that sets me apart is I'm a marketing partner on your team. We take an additional effort and we create, I think you've seen it, I shared with you an example, we create a video, a 1-minute video that you can put on all your social media with the photos that have been taken to bump it up another notch so that you can have that visual experience. And then we actually post it on, I've got 5,000 LinkedIn connections. I think we're at 550 on Instagram. I'm almost at 5,000 on Facebook. We blast it out there. It takes a few minutes. I believe it's a value add because coming from a sales and marketing background, nothing happens till you make a sale. Nothing happens, until you get eyeballs on the property. Absolutely. So the more eyeballs, the better chance. It's a numbers game. Sales is a numbers game. The more people that see it, the better chance you have of making a home run and connecting that perfect person with the perfect space.
So speaking of pricing and all that kind of stuff,
Yes.
What if someone has, I know a lot of these people, like let's say flippers, for example. I've worked with a few and they've basically put everything, because obviously they have a budget and then they get behind the walls and the budget kind of gets blown away by plumbing or by electrical issues or things that are big cost, roofs, things like that
Right.
might put them over their budget. What kind of, I guess, smaller budget type things can someone do just an easier than doing a full house?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think you and I chatted, typically I do suggest not a full house. Like we just, did a bid for about a 6,000 square foot home. We're just going to do the main areas. Even at that, it takes a scale of furniture and a bit of furniture to do just the main areas. For $1.5 million home, that's 6,000 square feet.
Absolutely.
Total. Now we're not going to do the whole, but you can imagine the living areas, the dining areas, they're
large
on steroids. Yeah. So, not every staging company has invested in inventory like we have to meet all price points, from luxury down to flip. So let's talk about the flip or being on a budget. So when COVID hit, we got creative, like many businesses did, to stay in business. And we had heard about a company who wanted to team with us where they financed it up front. And I thought, I want control of my business. No one's going to get in that sandbox with me. But you know what? I'm in a position to, as long as it's below a certain price point, because I'm not a big bank, we have put together packages where you can pay some upfront and the balance at closing. Because most people, flippers and non-flippers, they've got a ton of equity maybe at the back side, but they're kind of skinny on the upfront side. So we created that, and we had just a great, of course, response to folks say, hey, you have to stage, you're going to get more money for it, but you're kind of skinny up front. Here's what we can do. We just have title write it up as instructions. So it's all done through the title company that the balance is paid through the equity.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that coupled with, like we mentioned, not doing the entire house, but doing what we call a key room stage. So another budget COVID pivot solution we came up with is we purchased a transit van. We had it wrapped beautifully, that you can see us from a mile away, which is great. But the main purpose was so that we could do a 3 key room stage. You're smaller, let's say you're an investor. We certainly couldn't do Carlton Woods. But let's say, a smaller home, a 3 room stage. And basically, because we're circumventing almost $1,000 in professional movers with a 24-foot truck costs, we can pass on that savings to folks who either vacant, a 3 key room, or we're doing what's called mixed media, and we're doing a ton of those. So what that looks like is you've got a seller who's occupied, they have children or don't have children, but they need to sell it while they're living in it, which can be daunting, right? It's like, so what I tell folks is, you're going to be living in a fishbowl for a time, but if you do everything your realtor and I tell you to do, you'll be living in a fishbowl for a lot less time. So we have them do their decluttering, then we come in with power pieces in our transit, and that might look like art, faux trees, additional lighting, some small tables, and just transform it and up-level it and give it, maybe it needed color in certain areas, it needed some softness, it needs some greenery, it needs some artwork, et cetera. So we're able to take it to the next level on what we're calling our mixed media, which are very affordable as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I know there's a lot of houses where I'm like, eliminate this, eliminate that, but then it's kind of vacant. That's
the start. And I'll tell you the biggest, I would say the biggest mistake besides hanging artwork too high, the biggest staging mistake or placement mistake that folks make when they think of staging, they think, decluttering and taking down this and cleaning up. That's kind of a given. The biggest mistake and biggest impact when done correctly is proper furniture placement. So we did one a few months ago. It was over $2 million. Beautiful dual staircases, heavy furniture, but it went with the scrolled stairwells and everything, the whole house. But everything was shoved up against the wall. Okay, the simple change of proper furniture placement, floating the furniture, anchoring it if need be with a sofa, couch, etc., just took it to a whole new level. Yeah. Okay. And
how about picking the proper color, to paint your walls and things like that? Because I know I walk in. Maybe I'm wrong, but I always tell people, at least neutralize the house a little bit to make it, because I say, I've had a client that had a red wall, and I'm like, that's all that people are going to think of when they think of your house when they look at your pictures. Because they're going to be the house with the red wall, you know?
You are so spot on with that. If there's anything that a seller can do and get the biggest bang for their buck, it's painting. Okay, the power of paint is key. If you can't do anything else, neutralize. Now, when it comes to neutralizing, I've seen a lot of big mistakes, especially by flippers who think, oh yeah, agreeable gray, oh yeah, we'll just do it gray. And that often can be disastrous. I've seen it more than a few times because they didn't take into consideration the fixed elements. So here you have, say, a Baltic with brown and red tones, and you've got agreeable gray that has a little bit of blue tones in it. It's probably the most neutral gray, but you have a competition now because you went cool when you've got warm elements.
Yep.
So I usually advise alabaster as the most neutral. It's a creamy white without being a blue white, and it will contrast and play well with red tones, brown tones, some of those warm, earthy tones. The biggest probably delineation is cool and warm, and oftentimes sellers don't, or investors don't take that into consideration and can make some costly mistakes. But definitely neutralizing is going to pay. Because let me tell you what that, if we have time, equates to. Let's say they're just remembering that red wall, and it's a good-sized dining room or what have you. And the wife, usually she decides, I'm just saying statistics, there's a book, it's called She Buys, and she does. So let's say she says, but honey, Aunt Mary lives 2 blocks away, it's close to the kids' school, she's saying, and he's just going, all I see, it's a honey-do list, and I gotta have it painted, and he's just thinking about what he has to do. And so, of course, she wins, right? And she convinces him. And he says, fine, we're going to offer $5,000 less, because he's thinking of the sweat equity. Now that room probably didn't cost more than $500 to paint. But you see the math there about the equity that's being, because people don't buy what they don't see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they don't buy what they don't see. So yeah, you're spot on with the neutralizing. That's just key.
What do you think is the most important when people are interviewing stagers or, you know, someone to come redesign their home? What do you think are the important questions that people need to dig in to find out if the person's the right fit for them?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Dena. You know, as I mentioned for design, I do a discovery call because, you know, I think that's a good, 20 minutes spent to find out, what's the scope of your unique project? Am I a good fit? Do I have the right training, the right talent, the right experience? In my bailiwick, is it commercial? We do commercial and residential. We do a lot of restaurants and medical offices. So you want to find out what the background is, and are you a good fit, even just from an energetic standpoint. Like, you may just not like me. I remind you of somebody that you don't like, or vice versa, So, you're in business for yourself. You can kind of decide who you want to work with. And I was like, I don't know that I want them for a client, because you can choose. And so on questions for a staging company, I think a lot of folks don't know, especially if they haven't used a staging company before, that, again, that they're not all created equal. There's a lot of hobbyists, I want to say, out there. And it's not that maybe that's a good fit for you. You can wait 2 weeks to have it installed. I've had clients say, oh gosh, I had a company that was going to take her 2 weeks. I go, well, that tells me she does it part-time on the weekends, and it's going to take her 2 weekends to do it, and she's she's renting furniture. So what is your price point? Does this company have inventory? Because they're certainly not going to be able to rent it to accommodate, a luxury.
Which probably changes the price too. If they have to rent the furniture and then place it and all that, you're adding pricing.
Absolutely. And it really, that can be deceiving too, because unfortunately this industry is somewhat unregulated. So we see it all the time on Facebook, boards where they're just charging, too little. They're not going to stay in business. So how long have they been in business? Can you see their work? Show me a portfolio of your work. We're very proud, and I'm going to talk about referrals, of over 80, or it could be up to 82 now, 5-star reviews on Houzz. We're extremely proud of that because we work really hard for it. And I don't know about you, when I buy anything, I don't care if it's, water shoes for the beach, I'm going to look at reviews. What are other people saying about this product or this service? So look at reviews, look at their portfolio. If somebody really likes traditional, like I just got a lead come through and it was elegant and traditional. Could I do it? I could. But you know what? It doesn't bring me joy because it's not my style. Yeah. And I tell actually clients for staging, if they want to select, it's like I kindly tell them it really doesn't matter if you like the apple green sofa, because it's about what are the demographics. We do use an apple green sofa that sells properties like hotcakes, and it was actually awarded some recent award. I've got on the front of some magazine, because the demographics were in town, a 3-story, young professional, et cetera. Now, would I use that in a Carlton Woods? No. But in staging, you have to trust and be confident that the realtor is educated and knows. I always ask, well, who do you think the buyer is going to be? Are they going to be young, old, a family, no kids? Because that will give you clues to how you want it to feel when they walk in and potentially buy the property.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was a lot of information. I really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone else does. If you're looking to stage your house for selling or change your environment while you're living in it, or if you have an office space or something that you need to put some pizzazz to and some wow to, definitely give Kat a call. Why don't you let them know how they can get a hold of you?
Thank you, Dena, and thank you for having me. Yes, you can call me, is the easiest, 281-798-3750. That's 281-798-3750. I'm in the Houston Woodlands area. We work all over Houston. But if you're global, we do global consultations for design. If you're watching this from another country, give us a shout also. You can go on our website at www.tada, TADABYKAT.com. I know I said that fast, but you'll probably have it on the banner.
We do
thing,
have it
right?
on there. So thank you again for
Thank you
coming.
so
We really
much.
appreciate it. We'll
Thank
be
you.
right back with our next guest.